This is a map showing the land use in Chicago, the third largest city in the US. And this is the same, but for the fourth largest, Houston, Texas. At first glance, the difference is already obvious. Chicago looks like a city, dense, with an organized grid layout, clear zoning, and built around a central core. Houston, on the other hand, is very different. There seems to be almost no sense of planning at all, with land uses scattered all around the city. And that's because Houston is not just a city that happens to have poor planning. It is the largest experiment in what happens when you design a major city with almost no rules at all. Unlike nearly every other big city in America, Houston has no zoning laws. This means that homes can be surrounded by industrial warehouses. High-rises can exist right next to suburban neighborhoods, and homes can even be located right in front of a roller coaster, like in this photo. Houston is also one of the most car-centric cities in America, with endless urban sprawl, massive highways going straight through the city, and it has a practically non-existing public transit system. Traffic is among the worst in the country, flooding problems are very frequent, and housing is becoming increasingly unaffordable. But how did we get here? And is there a way to fix Houston's problems? To understand why Houston looks and functions the way it does, we need to go back to the early 20th century. While cities like New York, Chicago, and Boston were adopting zoning codes and building up dense urban cores around transit, Houston chose a very different path. 3 times in its history, Houstonians actually voted against implementing zoning. The most recent was as late as 1993. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate rejection of government planning in favor of what locals saw as freedom. Landowners and developers could build whatever they wanted, wherever they wanted, without restrictions. Today, the lack of zoning in the city is sort of a controversial topic, as locals either tend to defend it strongly or blame it for everything. But the approach did in fact bring many benefits to the city. Houston has historically been able to expand quickly during waves of in-migration because developers and businesses face fewer regulatory hurdles. Land can be repurposed rapidly for housing, industry, or commerce, keeping pace with demand. Also, without strict zoning separating single-family homes from multifamily or commercial use, the housing supply has been higher, which means that housing prices have remained relatively affordable, even though they have gotten increasingly expensive in recent years. This is extra noticeable in neighborhoods like Montrose, the Washington Avenue corridor, or Uptown, where older homes have gradually been replaced by rows of townhomes, mid- and high-rise apartments, commercial spaces, and condos, creating a distinct look rarely seen in other cities in the South. But Houston also has a multitude of problems, many of which are tied both directly and indirectly to the lack of zoning laws. Let's start with transportation. Houston is the 4th largest metro in the US, but less than 4% of commuters use public transit. Almost everyone drives. And when I say drives, I mean they sit in traffic. A lot. The average Houston driver loses around 74 hours every year stuck in congestion, one of the highest totals in America. And you would assume that spending billions on projects like expanding the Katy Freeway to 26 lanes, yes, you heard that right, would at least ease congestion. But traffic actually got worse. It turns out that when you make more room for cars, more people drive cars. The exact same cycle Los Angeles fell into decades ago. Despite this, the city is currently working on one of the biggest road expansion projects in American history, the North Houston Highway Improvement Project, which aims to alleviate congestion by widening and rerouting the I-45. Understandably so, many locals fear that this will just lead to even more problems. However, we likely wouldn't see this level of car dependency and consequences of it if not for the way the city has developed. Houston isn't just spread out, it's massively spread out. The city covers 665 square miles, making it larger than New York City, Chicago, and San Francisco combined. It's even larger than Los Angeles. While this might sound impressive, it comes with a massive cost. In most parts of Houston, unlike a fairly small number of neighborhoods which are mostly within the inner loop like the ones I mentioned earlier, everything is far apart. Homes, jobs, schools, and even grocery stores. This isn't just inconvenient, it forces dependency on cars, drives up infrastructure costs, and makes simple city services like policing, fire protection, and road maintenance far more expensive per resident. In essence, Houston's horizontal growth has created a city that is almost impossible to efficiently manage, and nearly impossible to experience without a car. Then there's walkability, or more accurately, the lack of it. Again, only a handful of neighborhoods like Montrose or Midtown are even somewhat walkable, but the vast majority of Houston is a patchwork of subdivisions separated by massive arterials and parking lots. Going out for coffee, groceries, and the gym in Houston almost always requires a car trip. Compare that to a city like Chicago, where those same errands can be done on foot within a few blocks. And if being trapped in traffic wasn't bad enough, Houston residents also face another nightmare: flooding. Houston has been labeled as one of the most flood-prone cities in the United States, and not without reason. When Hurricane Harvey hit in 2017, nearly 150,000 homes were flooded, and that is only one of several flooding disasters in recent years, although the worst by far. Houston's location in a low-lying coastal plain combined with its climate is already not ideal when looking at its vulnerability, but the lack of zoning laws actually come in here as well. Without any rules on where and how construction could occur, the city's rapid development has led to entire neighborhoods being built on wetlands and floodplains, areas that naturally absorb rainfall. So when a storm hits, there's simply too little ground to soak up the water, leading to faster, more severe runoff into streets, bayous, and drainage systems. So the question is, what can actually be done to address these issues? For starters, improving public transit is essential. Houston needs not just more buses or rail lines, but a comprehensive system that actually connects neighborhoods to jobs, schools, and services in a way that makes driving optional. Cities like Los Angeles and Dallas have invested in light rail and commuter systems over the past decades. And while neither is perfect, they show that you can reduce car dependency, at least a little, with strategic infrastructure and incentives. The city would also greatly benefit from smarter land use. Right now, many developments in the city and its surrounding suburbs have prioritized short-term profit over long-term resilience. By creating targeted growth corridors, encouraging mixed-use development, and preserving natural areas that absorb rainfall, Houston could drastically reduce the risk and severity of flooding. And by creating more dense and walkable neighborhoods, traffic would likely improve as it would make buses and light rail more viable, meaning fewer people would be forced to rely on cars for every trip. Streets could be designed for people, with bike lanes, pedestrian paths, and green spaces that connect communities. Ultimately, fixing Houston won't be easy, rather the opposite. And it would require political and just a general willingness from locals to rethink the approach that has defined the city for so long.